Gobekli Tepe raises a lot of questions to the established history and archaeology of the time. The Great Extinction, evidence of flooding, great climate change, and structures way ahead of their time all seem to be pointing to a single earth-shaking event around 12,000 years ago. And its time of origin lines up with many significant events and mysteries present in our timeline so far. For many scholars, the uncovering of this 12,000-year-old structure corroborated theories and hypotheses that were once considered fringe or conspiratorial. Now, when we're looking at the story of our ancient past and the stories of old, there's one more area that must be explored, and it must be done with caution: the Hindu scriptures. Now, the most famous in New Age circles is the Bhagavad Gita, which is a huge topic all on its own. It's over 700 verses long and is just a small part of the enormous Mahabharata epic. It's actually only part of book 6 of the epic, which has over 18 books, yet is an aspect of this particular conversation about ancient civilizations that a lot of people talk about today. The Bhagavad Gita is set in the frame of a conversation between one of the Pandava princes, a guy named Arjuna, and his guide, the god Krishna. As it opens, it covers something known as the Dharma Yuddha, which translates roughly as the righteous war from Sanskrit. The story begins with Arjuna, who is afraid of what the coming war will do to his people, and afraid of how much suffering it will cause. He wonders if he should renounce and seeks Krishna's counsel, who shows up and says, "Don't worry, kid, you're the best around," and then whose discourse constitutes the majority of the story. The conversations cover a broad range of spiritual topics, touching upon ethical dilemmas and philosophical issues that go far beyond the war Arjuna faces and into profound spiritual teachings. Krishna is basically described as the first motivational speaker in human history. From scholarly points of view, the nature and meaning of the text has been strongly debated, with most researchers and translators arguing that it constitutes allegory or metaphorical tales to illustrate philosophical concepts. Some scholars have also argued that it portrays varying relations between the personal soul, the Atman, and the universal soul, Brahman, and the Advaita Vedanta school arguing that the core tenet is speaking to non-dualism, that all souls are part of the same whole. Alternatively, some schools see dualism as the primary lesson, or that the souls of all of the characters are both different and the same all in one. So if you haven't guessed, academic study of this text is very complex, and there's quite a lot of debate and confusion around the true meaning of the text. For the most part, the setting of the Gita in a battlefield has been interpreted as an allegory for the ethical and moral struggles of human life. However, there are some who believe that the story itself is actually describing an actual account of a real-life war in history, and of course, real-life weapons. This view of the Mahabharata as a literal event is something purported by many ancient astronaut theorists, and as we personally dove into the subject, we found it to be a little bit sketchy. There were a lot of claims, such as ancient nuclear weapon radiation, and other quotes from the Gita supporting the theory that then didn't actually exist. The whole thing is likely just a consequence of really bad translations, misunderstandings of the original text, and maybe even a little bit of deception for the sake of content creation. So for anyone who wants to get the full story on the claims about this, we'll share a special blog post in the comments below all about it. However, there are a few aspects of this which is interesting to explore due to mythological similarities to the stories we've been exploring so far. It's just important to know that there doesn't appear to be much in the way of historical or physical evidence for these events. One of the most curious aspects of the Hindu mythologies was the Brahmastra, created by the god Brahma, which is described as an iron bolt through which all the individuals in the race of the Vrishnis and the Andakas became consumed into ashes, a fierce iron bolt that looked like a gigantic messenger of death. Interestingly, once King Ugrasena witnessed what the weapon could do, he took the decision to reduce it to a fine powder to protect the future generations to avoid temptation. I don't know about you, but this almost sounds like a description of the thunderbolts theory, of the massive column of lightning that descended from one planet and crashed down to the earth. The only main difference here is that the story seems to indicate it was a purposeful weapon and not a discharge from a planet.